Tell me, has this ever happened to you?
I'm engulfed by an ooze and have been reduced to 0 hit points and I'm getting nothing in return.
Well, then do I have good news for you, because in the newest supplement to Pathfinder 2e, the Dark Archive, Paizo has introduced a brand new type of feat available to characters who have survived a very specific encounter. Some of these are incredibly specific and will probably never happen in your campaign, but stick around towards the later half of the video because I'll be going beyond just what these feats do and cool ways to utilize them in your game. But first, today's video is sponsored once again by Gallant Goblin, this time showing off their Cryptids Expanded supplement. Cryptids are cool, and when they were introduced in Dark Archive, I was all about them. Now, there's a 30-page supplement with not just a new type of cryptid, but a whole lot more. In fact, they've taken all of the cryptids mentioned in the Dark Archive and given them tangible, usable stat blocks. So if you were just absolutely enthralled by the iron-bound siren from the Dark Archive, now you have a stat block to put it right into your game and have your players take it on. Honestly, in a lot of ways, Cryptids Expanded is almost like a mini bestiary filled with different cryptid creatures that you could plug right into your campaign, which would be perfect for a Halloween one-shot. It also comes with, and I'm not kidding here, the Cryptozoologist Oath for Champions. I think that is simultaneously hilarious, but also super cool. This divine, holy warrior who's sworn to destroy the abnormal. There's a ton in this book, y'all, and just like we're talking about today, there's 7 more Aftermath Feats. So if you like what you see here today, click the link in the description and pick up Cryptids Expanded. Plus, that link gives you 30% off your order, and I even get a little bit of kickback to support the channel. It's a win-win-win. Shout out to Gallant Goblin for sponsoring this video with Cryptids Expanded. Now let's talk Aftermath Feats. So how exactly does an Aftermath Feat work? Well, if you meet the prerequisite, you can retrain into it. Now this does mean you're going to have to sacrifice a class feat. Meeting these prerequisites is almost always surviving some kind of encounter. Some of them are more lethal than others, but once you have gone through that prerequisite, you can spend the 1 week of downtime to retrain a class feat like normal and gain the Aftermath feat. What's interesting is that these Aftermath feats tend to be permanent augmentations to your character. It specifically says that Aftermath feats can't be retrained out of, so think carefully if you really want to commit to it. Most of these Aftermath feats are available at mid to low levels, but do get stronger as your character gets stronger, so that's a nice little bonus. So I'm going to go over exactly what each of these feats does, and then I'm going to talk about how I would recommend you use them in your campaigns. Devil's Eye is available either after outwitting a devil or just signing up for a bargain with one, and it replaces one of your eyes with the eye of a devil. This automatically makes you expert in legal lore even if you weren't trained already, and this auto heightens at 7th and 15th level to Master and Legendary respectively. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to check any kind of document, treaty, or anything of the like, and your eye can see loopholes in the broadest term. The list it actually states here is verbal loopholes, double entendres, hidden meanings, code, or contradictions via conversation. This is really vague, but basically if someone is purposefully hiding something in their speech, you can tell. But perhaps most importantly, this feat makes you Phoenix Wright, because it grants you the OBJECTION reaction. Once per minute, before you attempt a saving throw against an effect with the linguistic trait, you can roll it with advantage, taking the higher of the 2 results. This doesn't really feel like an objection to me, but I do think it's just a funny name, and overall, it's a cool ability. Really good if you're facing devils, honestly. Echo of the Fallen slightly possesses you with the shard of a spirit. Let me explain. In order to take this feat, you do need to have helped lay a haunt, spirit, ghost, anything like that to rest. And then, talking to your GM, figure out a weapon and skill that the ghost was trained with in its physical life. Then, once per day, you can activate Accept Echo. When you activate this, you become trained in both the skill and the weapon that the ghost was trained in real life. So if you are a wizard with no martial weapon proficiency, but you helped lay to rest the ghost of an orc war chief who was proficient with great axes, then you can activate Accept Echo, and all of a sudden your wizard knows how to use great axes for 10 minutes. What can be really fun about this is while this 10-minute effect is active, the ghost can use your body to communicate with the physical world, which I think is kind of funny, but on the upside you do get a +4 status bonus against being possessed, because you kind of already are. At level 7, the ghost's skill proficiency increased to Master. At level 13, the ghost's weapon increases to Expert. And at level 15, the skill increases to Legendary. The skill up here is really good. You know, once per day become Legendary in a skill you don't even really know that well yourself. It's just a downside that the weapon caps out at Expert. Also, something I didn't mention is that the echo of the ghost. So effectively, the ghost's ghost permanently follows you around. You can see and talk to it at any time, and those with the ability to speak to the dead can also talk to it. So it's kind of like an extra half party member, which I think has tons of roleplay potential. Lingering Chill is honestly super simple. If you were brought to 0 hit points by an effect with the cold trait, you can now cast Ray of Frost as an innate cantrip, and you gain resistance to cold damage equal to half your level. They're not all super complicated. This one's nice and easy. Oh, it also protects you from severe cold temperatures. I do like that it specifically says enemy that has the cold trait, so you can't just have your wizard blast you with a Ray of Frost and then come back with Lingering Chill. Elysium's cadence is a little bit different from the others in that this isn't a combat encounter, it's either a party or a romantic relationship with an Azada. Azadas are basically chaotic party animals, and so by partying with them, you gain a permanent +1 circumstance bonus to make impressions, and +2 if the target is specifically chaotic good alignment. Additionally, once per hour, if you would roll a saving throw to remove either immobilized, paralyzed, confused, fascinated, controlled, or restrained, you get to roll twice and take the better result. Just some fun little freedom-focused chaos, you know? Jelly Body is probably the strongest one we've read so far. If you would be dropped to 0 health while engulfed by an ooze, you take on some ooze-like tendencies with your physical form. This grants you resistance equal to your level to both precision damage and critical hits. That's a lot of damage reduction. You know, at level 6, reducing all critical hits by 6 damage and all sneak attacks against you by 6 damage, really good. And you can submerge up to 1 bulk of items inside your goopy skin. It still sticks out of your body, but it doesn't count against your max bulk. So you could put, you know, like a crossbow in your armpit, or like 10 potions just around your body to grab at a moment's notice. It's gross, but it's actually really useful. Gift of the Horde is incredibly powerful. However, you do need to have done some kind of task deemed important for a dragon. If you do this, the dragon can bestow upon you the Gift of the Horde. This makes your eyes change color to the color of the dragon, and you grow a slight amount of scales along your skin. But what makes this so powerful is you get the Dragon's Breath Sorcerer Bloodline focus spell and an extra focus point. Remember that focus spells scale to your level, so this is a 9d6 Dragon Breath all on 1 feat regardless of your class. Very, very nice. I also like that you specifically refocus this focus point by counting and arranging your treasure. Siphon Life If you were reduced to 0 hit points by an attack with the negative trait, you can gain this unique 2-action unarmed strike. You attack, and if you hit, they make a fortitude save against 4d6 additional negative damage on top of your normal attack. And if they take even a single point of negative damage, you gain temporary hit points equal to the damage they took, meaning you could be gaining upwards of a potential 48 temporary hit points. And they last for a minute. Imagine rolling 4 6s on a critical hit. That would be disgusting. The saving throw is a basic fortitude save, but if they critically succeed, they are immune to Siphon life for 1 minute. But this is ridiculous. The amount of temporary hit points you can get from this, God forbid if they have a weakness to negative damage. Oh boy, that's a lot of hit points. Petrified skin is probably the easiest prerequisite so far. All it requires is that you have been petrified by an enemy. This one's actually manufacturable because, spoiler alert for basilisks for anyone who doesn't know about this, but if you are petrified by a basilisk and then someone kills the basilisk, they can just rub its blood on you and you're fine. This is a really weird one. You gain a 1d8 Stone Fist unarmed attack, which is kind of cool, and as you lose hit points, the petrification stretches more over your body, and if you are lower than half of your maximum hit points, your d8 becomes a d10 on your unarmed strikes. Though keep in mind, these do not have the agile or finesse traits like a normal fist, so these are only useful on someone with high strength. The weird part is this last paragraph. If you would be dropped to 0 hit points, rather than go into the dying condition, you can choose to petrify yourself. You cannot voluntarily end the petrification, and if someone turns your stone to flesh, you are brought back to 0 hit points. This is only useful if, say, the cleric is out of spell slots and you will die. You can petrify yourself, pray your party wins the encounter, they get a long rest, and then they heal you afterwards. It is so situational, but also kind of cool. Like, it'd be neat if you found yourself in a trap that, like, locked you in with flames everywhere and you're about to die, and you just petrify yourself because the flames can't melt your stone body, and then someone frees you later. That would be super tight. Dorm Interruption. If you've been dropped to 0 hit points by a fire attack, you can take this. Your skin is now permanently hot to touch and gives you 5 resistance to both fire damage and cold damage, and for the rest of your life, if someone hits you with a melee attack, they start taking 1d6 persistent fire damage. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's free persistent damage application for doing nothing. Also once per day, for 2 actions, you go boom, dealing 14d6 damage to everything in a 20-foot emanation. If you do this, however, you do lose the passive effects of this for the rest of the day, so no inflicting persistent fire damage and no damage resistance to cold or fire, but who cares? You got to be a fireball. Sink and Swim. If you were dropped to 0 hit points by something with the water trait, you'll learn how to swim. I'm kidding. I know the difference between a swim speed and knowing how to swim. But you do get a swim speed equal to your land speed, or if you already had a swim speed, it increases by 10 feet. And you get the water transfer ability. It's a little specific, so if you are standing on land, adjacent to a body of water, you can spend 2 action to sink into the water and reappear up to 120 feet away on land that is still adjacent to that water. It is nice that you can take another willing creature with you. Overall, 2 actions teleport 120 feet isn't bad by any means, just a little restrictive that it has to be through and around water. But again, the ability to take a second ally with you makes it a lot stronger. Fey Life. If you helped a Fey out and rescued them from a terrible fate, and you are specifically not Fey yourself, you can take Fey Life. Hilariously, this makes you incredibly oversaturated with color. Your hair, your clothes, your skin, and apparently everything you touch just drags the saturation slider so high up that you just glow. You get to cast 7th level Summon Fae once per day, and this goes up to 8th and 9th level at levels 18 and 20 respectively. Not bad. And the first time you die after gaining this Aftermath feat, you become a Fae. You are set to specifically 27 hit points, you gain the Fae trait, and a bunch of physical changes happen. You actually gain the body parts of the Fae you rescued. If you saved a small pixie with tiny little bumpy horns and little butterfly wings, you get little butterfly wings and tiny little bumpy horns for the rest of your new life. Now, this next paragraph is honestly one of the most horrifying things I've ever read, even though it's kinda nice. If you die a second time after your first little body part change, you teleport to the first world as an exact duplicate of the Fae you rescued. But the sentence that scares me so much is, you become an NPC. Your character isn't dead, but they're not your character anymore. They're just a Fae with no real knowledge or hard memory of their past life. Though it does say there is a 3-day ritual your allies can perform to bring you back from the first world with your memories as your character once again, which is nice to have. The hard part would be the other characters knowing this ritual exists. And if you die again, you go back to the first world like last time, but the only thing that can bring you back this time is the wish spell. And the last Aftermath feat, Walk on the Wind. If you were dropped to 0 hit points by something with the air trait, you don't gain a fly speed, but you do gain the ability to stride at half speed across calm air. And it doesn't say that ending your turn above the air makes you fall. So for all intents and purposes, it's a fly speed, but it only works on calm air. I'm guessing if there was even a little bit of a rough sea breeze, you would not be able to walk on the wind, which, for being a level 16 feat, Now, those are the Aftermath feats, but I promised you I'd tell you how I would choose to use them in my campaign. And mainly this advice is going to be for the lower level Aftermath feats. Anything above level 6 I think should be saved for that high of a level, just because those do have more outright power. But especially the level 4 and 6 feats aren't that strong up front. You know, the Devil's Eye, sure, getting expert in legal lore is strong, but it's also very, very specific, and the objection reaction only works on linguistic effects. I think a character starting at level 1 with this ability wouldn't be that powerful. My advice to you with your campaigns is let your players optionally take an Aftermath feat at level 1. You know, look at it closely, make sure they're not trying to just be super powerful. But if they're playing a devil-touched human who escaped the 9 hells but was marked for life by the loss of one of their eyes replaced with a devil's eye, that's such a cool concept for a character. Like, rather than hoping the campaign will have a devil in it to make a bargain with just to get this feat, it would work super well at character creation. Now, obviously, hopefully GMs, you'll let your players do this, especially if you're starting at a higher level. You know, you're starting in a level 10 campaign, let your player take Elysium's cadence because they were in love with an Azada in the past of their life. I think there's a lot of cool ways to integrate this into character creation rather than trying to force it into a campaign. I don't think there's anything wrong with adding it to a campaign. It can add some cool layers, but the fact that it costs a class feat doesn't quite sit right with me. So yeah, treat them similar to relics. Free feats that, yeah, give them a bit more power, but they're usually incredibly situational power. Except Dragon's Breath, that's just really strong. But let me hear from you guys in the comments below. Do you like the Aftermath feats? Do you think they're a little bit clunky? Do you like the idea of just giving them out for free rather than having to jump through these prerequisite hoops to get them? You know I love hearing from you, and I read all of the comments. Shout out to my patrons and YouTube members for supporting the channel. If you want to join that list, there's a blue join button right below here next to the subscribe button, which I guess like you should also click while you're down there or something. Also, a huge shout out to Gallant Goblin and Cryptids Expanded. Don't forget to click the link in the description to check that out. It's a really, really cool supplement, and I highly recommend it for some cool stat blocks of cryptids to throw right into your campaign. Perfect for spooky season. That's it for me, y'all. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones.